today. Good to see you all on a beautiful sunny Friday afternoon, and thank you for being here when you could be out enjoying the sunshine. I don't know what I would choose. I haven't. So yeah, I'm here to talk about place-based education and how that impacts my work and my colleagues in the design of a number of different programs here at UVM related to pre-service education and teacher education, teachers coming to our campus for professional learning, professional development. The presentation will be framed on 4 different questions. So we're going to look at what place-based education is, how liberal, critical, and indigenous perspectives have informed models of place-based education, how these ideas and traditions inform teachers' conceptions of place-based education, a study that I conducted with Mike Toolin, who's part of Rubenstein, and myself a number of years ago. And then also going to talk about how these ideas and traditions actually inform a new place-based education certificate program here at UVM that started about 2 years ago that some of you may remember. So I thought I would start with this idea of what a sense of place is. And it can be broadly defined as the relationship between a person and the land and the community where they live. One sense of place is developed through experiencing the natural processes, community, culture, and history of that place. And so I'm guessing some people came here today because they're interested in place and place-based education. So I'm wondering what your personal sense of place is at this point in time. Is there a specific place that's significant and particularly meaningful for you? So this is part of audience participation. So I would like you to think about that question for a minute. What is your sense of place? And is there a particular place in your life experiences that has some significant meaning to you?
My hometown had a beach, the Lake Michigan beach, and it always has a special place in my heart.
Is there a particular reason why?
I suppose the consistent times I went with my mom, and like that sort of memory connection to it.
Okay, so there's some long-term sort of temporal memories of this experience. I'm like, any particular part of it? Again, it's pretty huge.
Honestly, not a really attractive part. I think there was a nuclear power plant like not far away, which might explain my personality, but I think that there was a place called Mount Baldy, and it was like, as a kid, it was one of those hills where you're like, it's huge, and then as an adult, you're like, that's really not that big, but that kind of place.
Great, thanks for sharing. Somebody else want to share this?
I grew up in Jericho overlooking Mount Mansfield, and Mount Mansfield has always been a really special place to me, and it's kind of like where I started like experiencing the wilderness for the first time, and I'm now working here at UVM in the role to plan for a Mount Mansfield Science and Stewardship Center on the mountain and an abandoned telecommunications building. So both kind of from a personal perspective of the mountain itself, and then also this field station as well after the hub for research and monitoring that's taking place on the mountain, and kind of thinking about opportunities of developing sense of place and connections. I think the mountain itself is a very important part to our sense of place and this region and all around. So
I happen to agree with you, and I want to talk to you about this station too.
yes, I'd love to talk to you
I'll
about
understand better when I start talking about the things I'm more involved with here at the university. And I live in Stockbridge, which is 80 miles south down near Killington, you know where that is. So I drove in on 89 today, and Mount Mansfield was particularly spectacular out there today. The snow was incredible, and it's just beautiful in the sunlight. So I really noticed that on my way in today.
Yeah.
I grew up in Siwanoy territory, which is like a Salt people, colonially known as Westchester County. And in the neighborhoods, bicycling around, I ended up spending a lot of time in the ravines, and particularly finding these like weird cells that were actually like very primitive water filtration systems that were defunct, and like kind of pretend I was like a prisoner in there we were trying to liberate. And now I like work with mycorrhizae fungi to protect water quality from terrestrial activity, and work with students and people here as scientists and educators to protect water quality with farmland practices.
So you're talking about Westchester County in New York?
Yeah.
What particular town?
Colonially, it's called New Rochelle.
And I'm your neighbor from Yonkers.
Oh my
I might cross the sound for Washington. Stay the ferry to Mason.
Anyone else? Yeah,
This is almost more like a platonic ideal of a place, but when I grew up, I did a lot of haying and also making maple syrup with my parents. I have really fond memories of that. It's almost a place you can't visit except in your memory because it's all changed and, you know, but being in the hayfield, helping grow hay bales and also helping out in the sugar house are very, very important to my sense of person.
yeah, so
Sense of
there's
self.
an intersection of a lot there in terms of place and culture and history and I would put even your senses too, in thinking about sort of the particular smells and the sights of hay and maple syrup and smoke and things.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I say it can't go back there is because, you know, we've upgraded the sugar house to be more efficient, but you know, you put a big steam away over the flue pan, which recaptures a lot of the heat,
Right.
and you use a lot less fuel to make the same amount of syrup. However, you don't get that same, you know, cloud of, you know, maple steam wafting through the sugar house because it's much more kind of clinical and mechanical.
Great, thank you for sharing. In Stockbridge, I live in between two sugar houses, which have been pretty busy these past couple of days and week, so,
We haven't, unfortunately. But
yeah. Okay, were you gonna share?
Yeah, just super quickly, like growing up, I was just thinking about it last week. I saw an article about horseshoe crabs becoming endangered or something, and they have lived here since before dinosaurs.
Sure.
And Long Island Sound, growing up, I would see them on the bay, like some of them turn upside down. And I would try to save them, and that was my thing growing up. But like I didn't realize back then how precious these living things are. Because this it's like 100 million years they lived here. So it's just fascinating that we can't even have them now after all the extinctions and all the events that have happened. And the other thing I was gonna mention is like Burlington seems to have a very special thing that makes you create a sense of place, I guess, easily than I would say many other places. Especially, I lived in many places, but here is just, I don't know if other people can agree with me. Once you get here, it seems to be that you can find a sense of place right away, which is very special.
Do you have any particular ideas on why that might be about Burlington versus other places you've lived or been to before?
I have other people.
Is it a lake?
I mean, I have my ideas, but I guess other people might have theirs too, so it'll be interesting. But I would say the people tend to be nice, but also just the lake, the greenery, the mountains, everything is very environmental. I mean, you know, you can see nature.
And as far as cities go, it's relatively small, with only about 50,000 people who live here, right? And another thing that occurred to me on my drive in today, getting off at the exit, it's like, wow, Burlington really only has 2 exits that are really close to each other. I don't know if anybody's ever thought about that before, but I'm from New York City. And so, you know, I really have this huge range of comparison in thinking about Burlington as a city versus being from one of the boroughs of New York City. So great, thank you all for sharing. Smith and Sobel are well known for their work and their thinking in place and place-based education. And they say that place-based education is learning that is rooted in what is local, the unique history, environment, culture, economy, literature, and art in that place, And Rico and others said might be why Burlington is kind of special, because a lot of these things really come together in a lot of positive ways in this area, in Burlington, Vermont. So there are 3 different traditions that myself and my colleagues like to think about in thinking about place and place-based education. These might be kind of contrived in terms of what we call them, but thinking about liberal tradition, sort of using a local community environment as a learning context, more of a critical tradition, focusing on the socio-political analysis of places, and also looking at indigenous perspectives and traditions, focusing on traditional ecological knowledge and relationships with the natural world. I'm going to talk about each of them a little bit more. So Sobel in particular has focused his work on K-12 education and really looking at place as a way to use the local community and the environment as a starting point to teach across the curriculum. We call that an interdisciplinary curriculum in my K-12 world. So really thinking about sort of not teaching just art and math and social studies and science, but really thinking about the integration of these and looking at that and teaching about that from more of a project-based and a place-based perspective. Sobel also says that place-based education increases academic achievement, helps students develop stronger ties to their communities, enhances students' appreciation for the natural world, and creates a heightened commitment to serving as active and contributing citizens. Greenwood is the person sort of that we look to when thinking about more critical perspectives of place-based education. And here, Greenwood emphasizes the socially constructed nature and inherent conflict of places that are wrapped up in issues of colonization, race, class, gender. And for Greenwood to really know a place is to understand how the environment, culture, politics have worked to shape it, and to appreciate that any particular place may have diverse and competing meaning for different groups or individuals at the same time. And so Greenwood also invites us to think about a place-conscious education that challenges educators like myself and those of us in the room who think of us as educators, think of themselves as educators, to rethink the assumptions of schooling in the context of the places we inhabit and the places that we leave behind. In looking at indigenous perspectives, it focuses on traditional ecological knowledge and relationships with the natural world. There's very much an emphasis on reciprocity grounded in trust amongst partners. Often indigenous modes of education offer differing perspectives on place and education due to the nature of their operative knowledge systems, which carry ethics of social and ecological sustainability. And also humans have a responsibility for maintaining a harmonious relationship with the natural world. Western cultures often harbor an anthropocentric ethic that reinforces the perceived right to exercise dominion over nature to use for personal and economic gain. So these perspectives are sort of what are in our minds. When I say we, I say collective. There are a lot of people involved with this project called the Champlain Research Experience for secondary teachers. And I'll talk about all those partners in a second. This has been an ongoing program here at UVM for secondary teachers grades 7 through 12 for a decade now. We were first funded in 2013. It was hard for me to believe when I was looking over these slides that we've been doing this for 10 years. So it's funded by the VSAC GEAR-UP grant, which is a Department of Education, a federal Department of Education that's on a 7-year funding cycle through VSAC. The focus of this program is for grade 7-12 teachers from across Vermont. It's a 5-day, 3-credit graduate course, professional learning experience. It's focused on the ecology, natural history, and culture of the Champlain Basin. We look at topics such as climate change and invasive species, zebra mussels, algal blooms, mysis, lake trout, sampling, trawling, testing. You'll see the Melisira there on the bottom right. We know that that boat has been retired and a new one is hopefully on its way here soon. But that was a big part of our program for at least 8 years, eight of those years prior to COVID. And teachers got really involved, literally sort of rolling up their sleeves and putting on their boots and getting out on the boat and helping the scientists and doing sampling and trawling and testing in a variety of different ways. We offer this program the last week of June. It's in a variety of different local places. It takes place in the Rubenstein Labs. It takes place at Shelburne Farms, Shelburne Pond, Potash Brook. We partner with the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum and have been down there, as well as obviously aboard the Melisira. And we will hopefully be doing that this summer on the new boat, the Marcel Melisira. We're very eager for the arrival of this boat so that we can bring the teachers back on and particularly engage the teachers who worked with us through COVID. We had online programs and then a program in person last summer, but we obviously weren't able to use the book because it doesn't exist. So our focus is very much project and place-based in this program, in really trying to model that for teachers in giving them a sense of not only sort of the research that happens, but giving them a better sense of what project and place-based education is about. So we have a list of partners. Julia Perdrial is my partner through the NSF Critical Zone Science Project. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more. We work with the Watershed Alliance, Ashley Eaton, Caroline McKelvey. You're probably familiar with Ashley and Caroline. Other partners from Rosner, Mike Bluen, Matt Fuchia, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly, Jason Stockwell, and my colleague Leon Walls from Education. We have teachers involved who were former participants in CROSS from BFA Fairfax, and that would be Gabe Grant and Jensen Welch. We partner with Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi. Deirdre Wheaton and Chandra Lewis are professors that have worked with us through CROSS. And like I said before, Lake Champlain Maritime Museum and Sheldon Farms are also partners in this. Over the past couple of years, Julia and I have connected in working to bring in concepts of critical zone science into the CREST program. And over the last year, we were fortunate enough to be able to bring some teachers from Jackson, Mississippi to join us in this endeavor last June. So last summer was the first time that we did that. It's still up in the air whether that's going to happen this year, because we have lots of other things in the air that we're planning for. But that's been a nice sort of partnership between Julia and myself and all the other people that I mentioned before that were part of this. Do you want to add to that, Julia? Was that? Oh, that's great. That's great. And just a couple of pictures from last year with the teachers who joined us. In the middle, we had 3 teachers in person and 3 teachers online, but pretty active in terms of the work that we do outside and in the labs. On the right. So part of this work over the past couple of years has sort of inspired me and Mike Bluen to really begin to look at teachers' conceptions of place. And they come to us with all different kinds of ideas, perceptions, and practices related to place-based education. But we wanted to sort of study that more formally. So we created some interviews and actually went out to schools. This was a couple of years ago. Mike did most of the legwork in terms of the interviews. We also had opportunities to observe teachers in their practice, which I'm not going to talk about today. I'm just going to talk about some of the interviews and the results of the interviews with these teachers. So we interviewed 9 teachers, and we were really trying to sort of understand how do teachers conceptualize place and place-based education, and is there really some difference in terms of what they're thinking about and how they're enacting that in their curriculum. So we asked a simple question: what does place-based education mean to you? It was an open-ended dialogue about their conceptions of place that sometimes lasted up to an hour in terms of teachers sort of really talking about sort of place and the environment and the importance of place-based education to them. We drew from phenomenographic research methods to investigate the different ways in which people experience. And the major outcome of this is the creation of categories of descriptions, which are interpretations of the ways that people experience place in particular as a phenomenon. And using side-by-side comparisons of teacher descriptions of place and place-based education, we identified commonalities and differences about teachers' conceptions of place and place-based education. And we found there were essentially 2 different kinds of descriptions or categories: place as context and place as object. And here, place as context is seen as an approach to make the required content and skills more relevant and engaging for students through outside classroom experiences. And in my view, this aligns to Sobel's work in a lot of ways, really thinking about more of a liberal tradition of place-based education. Place as object is looked as an approach to help students not only sort of get out and understand and begin to sort of study the environment, but to actively contribute to protecting, preserving, and honoring their local ecosystems and communities. And here I see some alignment to more of the critical or indigenous traditions of what teachers are thinking about. There's obviously, they're not completely distinct. I'm going to talk about that, but we did find through this that teachers kind of fell into one sort of description or category and the other. And now I'm just going to sort of read to you some of the quotes from the interviews that we feel sort of supports this idea of place as context and place as object. I would define PBE as trying to incorporate the space or outside around the school into your lesson to make it more relevant. Place-based learning means that you're able to bring students to an area and conduct hands-on learning in usually an outdoor setting. I look at PBE as putting stuff into context for them, just as stuff we're learning about inside the classroom and matching it up with learning outside of the classroom in the surrounding area. When we asked the teachers what motivated them to take students out, one teacher noted a lot of the students who don't really engage in class engaged for this portion. That was cool to see, and I thought that might happen. So higher levels of engagement with students who typically refuse traditional education was something I was aiming for. That's why I thought it would be worth it. Another teacher pointed out the value of grounding abstract concepts in real world examples. When you have an idea that's more concrete for them, and then you can kind of extrapolate from that, I think it helps because you have a grounding piece for these bigger ideas to make connections with students. In contrast, some teachers saw place-based education as an approach to better understand and value the world outside their classrooms and as a means to make a difference in their local community. To me, place-based education means exploring outdoor areas near the school or home, creating maps, using senses, exploring and understanding the culture, history, and ecology of a place. That's almost like a textbook definition of place-based education. And this is sort of what this teacher was talking about in this interview. I think before CREST, I hadn't really thought about place-based ed per se, but to me, it means for the students to become familiar with, in my instance, a place near home. They can find out what's going on there, what natural resources are there, and how their actions affect that place and how that place may affect their actions. Place-based learning is when you take the students outside of the classroom and have them solve real-world problems that impact the stream in the town park. Place-based learning focuses on the local environment, history, or community, and the final product has some kind of value to that place. Our high school conducts macroinvertebrate surveys, which are processed by a cooperating lab at Dartmouth for mercury content, contributing to a kind of crowdsourced database of mercury in the local environment. One teacher noted, I love to take my kids outside. I think it's really good for them. I'm really into the idea of the power of play and being active and being outside. And the pictures here are actually kids from a middle school class. I think it was a while ago, Mount Abraham. And here these students were actually part of an archaeology dig in the area, looking at sort of an old building. So I don't have, anyway, I just wanted to point that out there. And this teacher sort of describes what her fundamental goal was, the long-term goal. My big secret is to instill in all my students in all of my classes a genuine interest in being outside, so they value it, so that when they become adults and they become consumers, that they think about their impact and to basically try and make more things, make them more thoughtful human beings in the process. Make them love the planet, so when they're voters and they think about policies, they think about how that impacts the environment. So as I said when I started, you know, they weren't necessarily distinct categories in terms of place as context and place as object. There was some overlap, but what we found is some teachers cited both the value of tying learning standards to real world research and the potential for improved stewardship among their students as a result of this direct relationship with the natural world. Variation clearly existed in both how teachers define place and their underlying reasons for taking students outside the walls of their classroom. A teacher who sees place as purely context may facilitate very different learning activities than one who seeks to investigate a place with students. And like I said, these orientations may not be necessarily mutually exclusive, but in most cases, one sort of viewpoint or one perspective holds importance or primacy over the other. And the awareness of subtle but important differences may provide teachers with the opportunity to choose, if they take students outside the classroom, which approach will take center stage. And I would say, thinking back to CREST and the evolution of CREST, the development of this program over the past decade, we weren't necessarily thinking about place in terms of these descriptions and categories. But as we move more into our, I guess, 11th year, and particularly since I've been working so closely with the place-based education certificate here at UVM, I'm really trying to get us to think about not just sort of the research and the ecology and the natural history, but really thinking about the cultural history and the implications of place and place-based education with the teachers that come to us in June. So there's been lots of subtle shifts over the last decade, and I suspect and predict that that will continue to happen as we continue to plan for our program this June. Okay, how are we doing with time? Sure, might take a couple more minutes to talk about the PBE. Very well. Great. Shift, but still related to this concept, this notion of place and place-based education. Over 2 years, myself and Simon Jorgensen and Walt Pullman and Amy Arnstein and a few other people in Rubenstein and the College of Education have worked to develop and launch the place-based education certificate here at UVM. This was launched 2 years ago, spring of 2021. And it is anchored in the 3 traditions that I talked about to meet the growing interests of our students who are interested in education, social justice, and the environment, and the intersections amongst all of those sort of ideas and concepts. And the whole premise behind this certificate is to prepare educators, whether formal or informal, to teach in a variety of settings using the construct of place, and to really think about local, social, cultural, and environmental issues for all. And like I said before, this is a partnership between CES, Resna, and Shelburne Farms. I won't read through all of this. I'll let you sort of take a quick glance. So here are our big goals: to design and implement place-based education materials for students to really get a sense of place and to begin to analyze specific places from all these different perspectives, to co-create new and engaging forms of experiential learning with community partners. That's a big part of our program, and I'll talk about some of those partners in a minute. To really, for those who are in education, but again, a lot of our students come from environmental science who are thinking about education in formal and informal ways to develop their teaching skills and thinking about place. And then also equally important is for all of us to reflect on power, privilege, and position, and potentially people's biases in their approach to education in the world. The coursework is 12 credits. 6 or more credits are required in terms of the 2 courses that are here: Foundations of Place-Based Education and the Place-Based Education Capstone course. And then selection from some of these might even be some of your courses for people sitting in this room right now. So students get to, I think this is pretty updated. I tried to update it last night. So students get to pick 2 courses, at least 2 courses from this list of courses that are designated as place-based education classes. The foundations class, which I was part of teaching for 2 semesters, including last semester, is mixed modality. We meet weekly for 3 hours. It's a mix of on-campus workshops, guest speakers coming to us remotely and in person, a lot of group work with the students, and field-based experiences. The places that we tend to go to are probably familiar with to people in the room: Rock Point, Shelburne Farms, the Watershed Alliance. Ashley and her team come and work with us. We've been to Potash Brook doing water quality monitoring there. Burlington School System has a program called Burlington City and Lake. If you're not familiar with that, it is a place-based education program, a magnificent program doing wonderful things for students in Burlington schools, as well as Champlain Elementary School is very much a place-based education school that we also go visit. So we visit BCL, the high school, and BCL comes to visit us here on campus. So we have that reciprocity in terms of relationship building and giving students from high school opportunities to come to UVM and think about UVM as a place. And we also go to Ethan Allen Homestead. I'm forgetting 1 or 2 places, but that's most of the places that we've been to in the past 2 years. The foundations course, again, I'm not going to read all of this. The goals are similar to the larger goals of the program. Our assignments are kind of interesting in that there's a lot of reflective journals. There's personal mapping and storytelling projects. We ask students to create a toolkit of their place-based experiences that they have been generating throughout our course. And then because this is place-based education, we ask them to design a place-based education project that they would use in whatever capacity, place, situation, environment that's important to them. I won't read all of this, but this is the mapping and storytelling assignment for the course. Essentially, an example might be students in the class would sort of think about designing their project around a week in Burlington or Burlington A through Z. Everything from coffee shops to parks to whatever people are really interested, depending on sort of who they are and what their interest is. The toolkit again is sort of like a portfolio or a collection of artifacts that the students are finding of relevance and importance to them throughout the course. And this becomes part of their PBE toolkit. And then the final design project, which is very much project-based. We started somewhere sort of 2/3 of the way into the semester. It gives students opportunities to develop a proposal, to get feedback from us as their professors, but also peers. They do presentations, and then the final project comes in at the end of the semester. Anybody who wants these slides, I'm happy to share them, or even the syllabus for the course. But this is pretty much sort of what we're looking for in terms of the place-based design project that culminates. Now, just a couple of pictures, and then I'll be quiet so we can talk a little bit more. I just want to give a shout out to Walt Pullman, who's instrumental not only in the development of the certificate, but also in teaching the place-based education course. Simon Jorgensen is the coordinator of this program in the College of Education. Simon has been teaching both the foundations course and the capstone course. Mike Lewin joined us this past fall in teaching the course and stepped right in, and he was a natural, as anybody who knows Mike just knew all about place and how to make it really work for himself and for the students. Myself, and then Amy Arandia Ostesen from Shelburne Farms, who is a magnificent place-based educator for Shelburne Farms, who has been partnering with us for the past 2 or 3 years. Some themes: peer teaching, very much part of what we do in this class. We actually have students step up. Here we have a student down at Potash Brook leading a lot of the investigations for the water quality monitoring. When we go to Champlain Elementary School, those are the 5th graders teaching the college students about basket weaving, among other things that happen when we go there. Very much about farm to table. When we spend time at Shelburne Farms, we harvest the vegetables, we create meals, those beautiful meals, and you see the product of that, and then the students busy sort of working to put that together. Art and dance is part of the course. The middle piece, the clay creation, is a group of students' rendition of what place-based education means to them. And again, we're at Shelburne, not Shelburne Farms, Champlain Elementary School, dancing, and also sort of, I think, more basket weaving on the left there. And partnerships are really important. All of those places that we go, it's about sort of reciprocity and really thinking about how to partner with these places and not just sort of take, but also sort of give in terms of what we can bring to the community. So here we have Burlington City and Lake experiences. Reciprocity and gratitude. Wherever we go, we bring gifts, and we have sort of a formal sort of thanks in giving back to the community of the schools, something as small as pipe cleaner people at the bottom, or notes of thanks. And in 2021, the students got together and put together a book of gratitude for each 3 of the instructors, and that was the front page of mine, which is pretty humbling and inspiring at the same time in terms of what students have to say about the course and their experience in the course. On the last day, I don't know how Walt was able to get us up into the bell tower, but we were up in the bell tower and had our class at the top on our last day of class in the fall of 2021. And I'll just leave you with some words from Wendell Berry to sort of get us really thinking about place in different ways. What is the nature, what is the genius of this place? What, if we weren't here, would nature be doing here? What will the nature of the place permit us to do here without exhausting either the place itself or the birthright of those who will come later? What even might nature help us to do here? Under what conditions imposed by the genius of the place and the genius of our arts might our work here be helpful and beautiful? Thank you so much for listening to me.